for the last almost 20 years now, I've been doing research science full time, and I've actually been looking for a way to share all the amazing, life-changing science that's out there with the general public. And how can people access that science and change their lives? And the result of that effort has been Nutrition Made Simple, the channel that you're on right now, actually. We're streaming live for the first time in channel history. And it's been a great ride, 2.5 years, roughly. We've put out almost 100 videos now. We've had over 2 million views, and we've interacted with thousands of people, incredible people, and it's been a great ride, and we're just getting started. So why nutrition? A couple reasons. We could have talked about many other topics in health, medicine, and science, but we think nutrition is a good bet because when you look at large studies of risk factors for disease and death, normally nutrition is at the top or pretty close to the top. So clearly a major factor in Western society. Another reason we think nutrition and lifestyle in general are a powerful lever is that the way medicine, particularly Western medicine, is structured is if you have a problem with your heart, you go to the cardiologist and he or she try to fix your heart. You have a problem in your brain, you go to a neurologist, he or she will try to fix that organ. Problem in your gut, gastroenterologist, they'll try to fix that organ. Problem in your kidney, nephrologist. But when you address lifestyle, nutrition, physical activity, not smoking, these fundamentals, you tend to tackle all the breadth of medical issues, and you do it preemptively. So you prevent a lot of these problems coming about in the first place. So lifestyle is incredibly powerful. So this is kind of the why. Although if you're here, if you're watching this, I think it's a safe bet that you're already persuaded that lifestyle and nutrition are important. I don't need to work too hard to convince you of that. So let's look at the what real quick. These are Michael Pollan's famous words: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. He tried to encapsulate everything we know about nutrition in 7 words. What does he mean by eat food? Of course, eat food. I think he means something a little more profound. Here's one way to look at it. If it came from a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, don't. So basically focusing on natural foods as found in nature in their natural state, not these artificial concoctions made in a lab or facility somewhere. So I take the liberty of editing Michael Pollan's much more eloquent words. I think he means eat real foods. Interestingly, when you get the quality right, you tend to take care of the quantity issue. In our society, there's a lot of concern over quantity. Don't eat too much, I'm eating too much. The truth is, when we eat the right foods, quantity is not so much a concern. It tends to fall into place. And finally, mostly plants. I really like the wording. It's not rigid. It's not ideological. It's not, you got to eat this diet, not that diet. Dodges all the internet diet wars. But we do need a little bit, and it's very brief. It's very succinct, which is powerful. But it does help to have a little bit more information. If we ate a diet of 99% rice, it would be mostly plants, but it wouldn't be a great diet. So for reference, here are 5 pillars. Things to focus on, things to shoot for. Legumes, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, and I'll throw in a bonus, mushrooms, right? When our plates and our menus are populated with these foods, those are the fundamentals, right? This is the main thing as far as I'm concerned. Whether people choose to have some animal products in there or not, whether people choose to have some processed foods once in a while to scratch the itch or not, I'm not as worried about, as long as the overall dietary pattern features a lot of these foods, a lot of unprocessed plants. So that's a very quick bird's eye view of the what. Let's touch on the how real quick before I wrap up and pass it on to my colleagues. In my experience, people are at different steps of their journey. Some people are just starting. They're nutrition curious. They're open to learning more, or they've started experimenting, but they haven't gone too far yet. Let's call it the beginners. My advice for if you are in this category, if you're just starting out on your journey, focus on this mindset. Done is better than perfect. What do I mean by that? The main problem I see with people starting out is they bite off more than they can chew. And they tend to get overwhelmed. They try to go too far too fast. We get overwhelmed, we get discouraged, we fall back on old habits, and then we conclude, well, I tried to clean up my diet, but it didn't work for me. It's just not for me. So it's my fate to eat this diet that makes me sick. Instead, try to focus on goals that are perhaps smaller but more achievable, things that you're confident that you can implement, that makes sense for you, for your life. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same goal as someone else, but something that you are confident that you can implement and that is sustainable in the long run, potentially for years. And even if it is a smaller goal, once you have that down, then we can build on it. But it's better to move slow and steady than to try to tackle everything on day one and then fall off the horse, right? Okay, intermediates, people, let's say, that have already made some changes, have experienced some success, but they still want to make more. They're still along the way at some point. My suggested mindset: rocks before sand. Okay, this is, of course, alluding to a famous story I'm sure you've all heard. The professor stands in front of the classroom with a container full of rocks and says, is the container full? The class says, yes. He throws in some pebbles. They fall in between the rocks. He says, is the container full now? The students say, yes. He throws in sand, fills up the crevices, and he says, now the container's full. And it's a metaphor for life. If you fill it up with sand, you end up not having room for the rocks, for the big things, for the important things. And the same thing happens in nutrition. I have a lot of people who are stressed out over things like, does the food need to be 100% organic? Or is oil good or bad? And they haven't necessarily put the fundamentals in place yet, the big things, the rocks. So it's not that those questions are irrelevant. It's just that there's a certain priority. And if you try to learn it all on day one, you get overwhelmed and discouraged. So start with the big things, start with the rocks. Once the big things are in place, then out of academic interest or perfectionism, sure, let's look at the other questions. And the rocks, the fundamentals, are exactly the things we looked at. The pillars, those pictures we saw, the different food groups, mostly plants, Michael Pollan's famous words, so mostly whole plants. Those would be the pillars to get in place first. Finally, let's call it the advanced. People who have heard it all, who have read it all, every idea in nutrition. And they're all over this. Like when I post a video, people ask questions about the topic, and the advanced guys will answer the questions and cite sources and everything. I love this crowd, my fellow nutrition nerds. My only advice for people at this stage is don't get so busy optimizing your diet that you forget to enjoy it. I've definitely made that mistake before, but let's remember that once we have the fundamentals in place, once the big pieces are solid, to take some time to stop, to breathe, lean back, and enjoy the amazing food in front of us.